From Microbe TV, this is Beyond the Noise, episode number 100, recorded on March 23rd, 2026. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and joining me today is your host, Dr. Paul Offit.
Hi, Vincent, and happy 100th broadcast.
Almost 3 years ago we started, May 2023. It's amazing, right?
Right. It's been great.
Usually we celebrate, so you have to come here sometime.
Definitely.
So that we can do one here, even though it's just 15 minutes. You know, maybe if you're in New York for some other reason.
No, my daughter lives in New York City, so I will definitely be there.
Oh, that's cool. Then you can go visit her. Well, this has been an interesting 100 episodes, and I hope you're up for another 100 because we need it. We definitely need it. I had read your Substack years when you first started it, and one day I just said, oh, we should do a short video. And you agreed, and I was very happy. So I think we make a difference. This is, of course, the video version of Paul's column on Substack called Beyond the Noise, Cutting to the Chase on Important Health Topics. Today we will talk about, we're not going to talk about viruses today. It's very interesting. We're going to talk about his latest column called The Return of Hib. So, Paul, what's Hib?
So Hib is a bacterium, Haemophilus influenza type B. Before there was a Hib vaccine, which first came out in the late 80s, every year Hib would infect children less than 5 years of age, causing diseases such as meningitis, sepsis, epiglottitis, arthritis, and cellulitis. The most frightening of all, by the way, was epiglottitis. I mean, I was a resident at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh between 1977 and 1980, so this is years before there was a Hib vaccine, or frankly, a meningococcal vaccine or pneumococcal vaccine. So I would do, during a 12-hour emergency department shift, I would do 2 to 3 spinal taps a night because we didn't have a meningitis vaccine, and got very good at doing spinal taps. Interestingly, pediatric residents today in our hospital don't do spinal taps. It's the interventional radiologist that does them. But let me just a word about epiglottitis. That was the most frightening disease of Hib because epiglottitis means swelling of the epiglottis. The epiglottis is a membrane that sits on top of the windpipe. And so when you eat, it protects the windpipe so that food doesn't go into your windpipe. But when it swells, it begins to occlude the windpipe so that when children would come in, they were frightened, they were leaning forward, they were breathing very slowly and carefully, and we had a special room for children with epiglottitis. It was a dark room with an aquarium in it. We would take the child and we would bring them with their mother into that room. Then we would call a team down from the surgical suite, and they would come down and slowly transfer the child quietly up into the surgical suite where they could intubate the child under controlled conditions. It was a scary disease.
What was the fatality rate?
The fatality rate overall was about 5%.
So how did children get it? How is it transmitted?
Right, so it's a bacterium that can line the nose and throat. And for many people, it just colonizes, but sometimes it invades. And usually just from talking, sneezing, coughing, you were then colonized with that other person's bacterium, which for you could be fatal.
So how would parents know if or suspect that their child has Hib?
Well, so if it's septic arthritis, it would be, a joint that would be clearly swollen. If it's cellulitis, and usually it's a buccal cellulitis, so it would be swelling and tenderness and redness on the face. If it was meningitis, you would have sort of neck stiffness, high fever, somnolence, lethargy. And if it was pneumonia, it would be the symptoms of any typical pneumonia.
And before the vaccine, again, how many cases did we have in the U.S.? About
20 to 25,000 cases every year of invasive Haemophilus influenza B disease. It certainly dominated my residency, or anybody who was my age, it dominated their residency.
And after the vaccine, what were the numbers?
99% decrease. I mean, today we'll see at most 50 cases, usually it's a couple dozen cases per year in the United States.
And that's probably in unimmunized children, right?
That's right.
And what year was the vaccine introduced?
Sorry. I think 1987.
All right, and there are school mandates in some states for Hib vaccine?
Yes, that's right. It's there was an unconjugated vaccine, just a polysaccharide vaccine that came out, and then the conjugated vaccine came out later in the 80s. But I think the conjugated vaccine was 87. So that was the vaccine that worked best for young children, because young children don't make a very good polysaccharide response. They don't make a very good T-cell independent B-cell response. It really has to be conjugated so it can be a T-cell dependent response. But yeah, that came out, and many states, yes, mandate the Haemophilus influenza B vaccine, which is usually given obviously in the first couple of years of life.
Was this one of the vaccines that was tampered with by RFK Jr.?
No, the Hib vaccine, on January 5th, when Health and Human Services put out their own schedule, Hib was still a routinely recommended vaccine.
All right, so something is going on with Hib in Florida. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was in Florida, actually, and was asked to give a talk to a group of 30 physicians. And during that talk, one of them just sort of casually mentioned during the question and answer period that she had seen 2 cases of severe Haemophilus influenza B in Florida over the previous 6 months. One of those children, a 4-month-old, had died. The other, a 2.5-year-old, had been seriously infected, meaning had meningitis and brain abscesses and coma and was intubated. And there was a question about whether the child had been brain dead. But that, when you think about this, if there's only going to be 24 at most 50 cases a year, and the mortality rate is 5%, you would only expect a couple deaths per year in the United States, not one child who died and another child who nearly died in one state over 6 months. Mm-hmm. And it sort of raised the question, do we really know what's going on with Hib?
So in Florida, the Surgeon General wants to stop school mandates for 4 vaccines, including Hib, right?
That's right.
And so could that be contributing to under-vaccination now?
I'm not sure that's contributing to it. I mean, it's because as of then, it was still mandated. I think just in general, because of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s assault on vaccines, making them, optional and less available and less affordable and more feared, there's a general decrease among young children for all vaccines. And that's why you're seeing more measles and tetanus and whooping cough and influenza and deaths from, measles and influenza and whooping cough. And it's, I think this is an overall decline. That's what worried me. It seems so statistically aberrant to have 2 very severe cases and 1 death in one state over a 6-month period that I just wondered what was going on. And do we not know? Because you and I have talked previously about RFK Jr.'s sort of assault on CDC monitoring and CDC surveillance. Are things even worse than we imagined? Because certainly regarding measles, I've had people on the ground tell me when we report, say, 2,200 cases of measles in 2025, many people think it was probably closer to 5,000. So it's not only that things are worse, it's I think we don't know how bad they actually are. And that's why I wrote this piece about Hib, and hopefully to sort of stimulate reporters to take a closer look at what's going on state to state to see whether this is something that's falling through the cracks.
So were these 2 cases in Florida reported by CDC?
No, they were reported in a newspaper article, and that's the only place I saw. I mean, if you look on some of these state and CDC sites, it'll report Haemophilus influenza, and it won't report Hib separately, Haemophilus influenza B separately. And there's non-typable Haemophilus influenza, which is to say a Haemophilus influenza that doesn't have a polysaccharide. So generally, it's less virulent, but it can be severely invasive. And Haemophilus influenza, not type B, has increased recently. So you can't really tell what the level of Hib is in this country, not easily.
So you said that the physician in Florida told you that this was typable Hib, right?
Yes. No, I called him because there were a few possibilities. Either one, these children weren't from this country and weren't in a place where there was vaccines that made there was more circulating Hib. The second was that it wasn't Hib. But I called the doctor and he said it was clearly Hib. These children were born in this country. And so either it's a statistical aberration or it is a warning that things may be worse, not only for the diseases we just talked about, but for Hib as well.
Were these children vaccinated?
No.
So do we know if CDC has cut reporting of Hib?
Don't know. CDC's become a black box. It's hard to know what's going on at CDC. I mean, you look on their website and try and figure out the incidence of these diseases. Often it's very hard to tell. I think this is what RFK Jr. has done. He's sort of shredded the CDC surveillance and monitoring and reporting.
You mentioned in the article that childhood immunization rates are declining. Is that a fact?
Yes, that is a fact. Childhood immunization rates are declining.
Throughout the U.S., every state, basically.
Well, obviously there's pockets. There's
Yes.
some pockets are fine, others aren't. And that's when you see it, those pockets where there's under-immunization. Like the Mennonite community in West Texas was a highly under-vaccinated community and was the source of that measles epidemic that started in West Texas.
So why is it important to know the number of cases? Why is it important for the CDC to tell the entire country this?
So that pediatricians can talk about what the risks of these diseases are. That a choice not to get a vaccine is not a risk-free choice. It's a choice to take a different risk, and this is what that risk looks like, so that people can be fully informed about the decisions that they're making.
This also informs treatment, right? Because if you have kids coming in and you know there's an outbreak in your community, then you're going to be thinking of Hib, right?
That's right. And if you're exposed, you might have to get prophylaxis because you've been exposed to that child.
Oh, by the way, that's a good question. Is there a treatment for Hib?
Yes,
Once you have,
that's right. No, there's antibiotics that can treat Hib, but you'd much rather prevent a disease than treat it.
well, also when the children come to the ER, they're in very bad shape typically, especially with neurological symptoms, right?
Yes, especially meningitis. I mean, meningitis can be overwhelming and has a fairly high percentage of people who have permanent sequelae like blindness, deafness, etc.
Better to prevent, yes, than treat. We'll put a link to this column in the show notes so you can read it and take the links in the article itself. That's Beyond the Noise with Dr. Paul Offit. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Vincent.